All right, it is August 20th, people, and you know what that means. I know that, there are some people that are still out there going on their last-minute vacations and all that, but we're back from vacation. School's basically about to start, which means summer's over. We're for everyone. That's right. That's true. But we are here to talk about the last official big summer movie release. I'm shocked because we haven't had a summer release this late into August in a while. August is usually reserved for like some pretty crappy, low budget horror movies and some maybe surprise hits, but we're here to talk about the latest and possibly best DC movie so far this year in 2023. Not that that's saying a whole lot given what we have to compare it to. Blue Beetle, directed by Angel Manuel Soto, I believe is the guy's name, and starring Xolo Mariduena, a.k.a. Miguel from Cobra Kai, as Jaime Reyes, a.k.a. Blue Beetle. I am joined once again by Dontre, a.k.a. Dontre James, a.k.a. Tarantino. Dontre, do you have anything to say before we get this podcast started?
Honestly, interesting movie. Not so much great, but it was still tasteful a little bit. But yeah, let's get into it.
Absolutely. Interesting being the key word there. All of that and more on tonight's episode of the Talkin' TV podcast. On, people, we are back after a slight hiatus. I was just on vacation in Italy. I was trapped on an island getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. You can't see it from here. It's a little bit difficult to see from a distance, but I'm in a little bit of my chillax mode. I'm recovering from my birthday celebration as well. It's August. August is always kind of like a weird month for podcasting. Last August, we actually got a little bit lucky because we had Bullet Train, which kicked off the month, which was, for me, one of the best movies that came out last year. Just God tier, and that's Dontre. That's why I love that you're on with this podcast with me tonight, because you of all people can appreciate what a God tier movie that was.
God tier. That's the only movie I actually brought, and the last time they brought like the digital and like a Blu-ray version of it.
Wow, that's cool. When was the last time you actually bought like a digital and Blu-ray of anything?
I want to say I want to say early MCU, like
wow,
like early. Yeah,
that's going back. That's not even 2010s. That's like late 2000s. That's crazy.
And I think we
had Bullet Train, which has got.
My bad, sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So we had Bullet Train, which is an absolute God tier movie, and then we had a couple of interesting like TV events. We had the conclusion of Better Call Saul, which was like a monumental like gangbusters event, way bigger than I thought it was going to be. And then we had the premiere of House of the Dragon, which at the time going in, people were still a little bit skeptical going in, whether that show, especially after, the divisiveness of the Game of Thrones finale, and then House of the Dragon obviously ended up kind of becoming what it is. And I think it's safe to say that, like, that show, well, obviously it will never be Game of Thrones. It definitely helped to bring the Game of Thrones hype back a little bit. And then we had a little bit of a break before we got into the fall. But this August, it's been, I'd say, a little bit more of a traditionalist August, where August traditionally has always been, we usually have the first weekend, which is when we usually get a gangbusters movie. Like, I remember 2 weeks ago when Sean and I were doing Ninja Turtles, we were going over, like, the history of, like, that first weekend of August release day. That's famous when we got the first Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie got straight out of Compton in 2015. That's when Crazy Rich Asians came out in 2018 and, like, was one of the biggest surprise hits of that summer. So August has always been, like, kind of a weird and interesting month. And so naturally, just given the state of the industry right now, things are finally winding down from the summer. This is infamously the summer of striking, when pretty much all of Hollywood went on strike in the midst of arguably their comeback year after 2 years of COVID. We have the DCEU, which is in like this weird phase of like resetting, shutting down, two arguable box office failures, with the Flash that was kind of supposed to be like the end all be all homage to the Snyderverse that was kind of a mess overall, depending on who you ask. I know a couple of people who liked it, but I think it's safe to say that overall, just from a box office standpoint, that movie was pretty much a failure. Like, pretty much. Well, what did they say? That was like the biggest box office bomb that they'd had since Green Lantern back in 2011. A whapping 12 years.
I don't even think financially it broke even.
I don't even think it did. I don't think it did. It did not do well. And but like I talked to a couple people, they were saying that like the real reason why they said they were harping so hard on that movie was they were banking super hard on Michael Keaton. And I'm like, clearly they did not take into account just the overall divisiveness that lead star would cause. But so we have a little bit of a weird one, right? So like I said, I talked about this from the beginning about how this year the DCEU was kind of a little bit doomed because you had, right, this big shift out, right? James Gunn and Peter Safran being named as the two new co-CEO heads of DC in, what was it? No, I believe it was what, November, either November of 2022 or
Yeah.
February of 2023, whenever we did that video. But they still had 4 movies that were on the docket, right? We have had 2 of those movies now, and we are now reviewing the third of those movies, Blue Beetle. And so going into this movie, I will say that, like, a couple trepidations. One, just the fact of, like, the state of the DCEU, everything that we've sat through up until this point. At this point, it's kind of just like, okay, we're just getting these over with. Like, these movies are coming out. We already know that they're going to be rendered pointless. So
Right.
let's just get through them, because it's all going to get rebooted and reshuffled off the table. None of the shit that we're seeing this year is going to matter. More than likely, if these movies are good, I mean, I highly doubt it, but if they are, great. But if not, and I think it's safe to say that they've both been kind of largely disappointing so far. But then what happened is right. So obviously James Gunn, right, was promoting the hell out of the Flash, right, because obviously the whole Warner Brothers needed that to do well and all that, and he supposedly he liked it. I don't know if he actually did or not. I mean, he talked about it a little bit, but the biggest thing that I noticed was he was sitting down with his good friend Michael Rosenbaum on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. Rosenbaum, the two of them have known each other for several years. He's cast Rosenbaum in several of his movies. He plays the role of Martinex in Guardians of the in the second 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And he mentioned casually that Blue Beetle was the first character that was going to be included in his universe. That perked up my ears a little bit. I'm like, okay, so Gunn obviously was just promoting the Flash because he had to, but clearly anybody in their rational mind knew that Ezra Miller was never going to be included in any variation of what DC was going to be going forward once they rebooted everything.
Yeah.
But him saying that Blue Beetle was going to be a character in his universe before their first official movie in the new DC reset, which will be 2025's Superman Legacy, right? So obviously, just to clue people in, so we have one more DC movie on the slate. We have Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom, which comes out in December, and then we're going to have 2 of so we got that coming out, which we still don't have a trailer for, even though it's August. That movie's only 5 months away. We have no trailer for it or any sort of promotional material about it. We have no idea what the status of Amber Heard and being in that movie is. We have no idea. We have no clue.
Right.
We're gonna have that. That's gonna be it. And then we're gonna have a year of no DC with 2024. So 2024 is basically gonna be Marvel's 2020, where we're gonna have a year of no DC, chance to wipe the slate clean, reset. I know Gunn's doing that animated show Creature Commandos, but we all know how these studios treat the animated stuff in comparison to the live action stuff. And then we have Superman Legacy, which as of right now is still slated to premiere in July of 2025, and that will be the kickoff to this new iteration. But on the Rosenbaum podcast, Gunn mentioned that Blue Beetle would be the first character that was original to his universe. I'm like, okay, so that clearly shows that he sees something in this movie. Now, I had previously been very vocal when these trailers came out. I believe the first one was in the fall of last year. That I'm like, these trailers, of all of the trailers, look the most underwhelming. I'm like, this looks like absolute dog shit. This looks like some CW looking garbage. The effects look unbelievably awful. Literally, I think my only incentive as far as wanting to see this movie was the lead kid, because I'd seen Xolo in 5 seasons of Cobra Kai up to this point, and I'm like, okay, he's probably, aside from Billy Zabka, the best actor in that show. Like, the kid has acting chops. I'm like, if anybody could carry this part, as far as like the Jaime Reyes part, it could be him. But like, I realized because you and I have been talking a lot about obviously superheroes in the state of DC in the last couple months, but and really last couple years in general going into it. You've obviously said that, like, yeah, you would clearly be DC should call you as far as you being like the Kevin Feige in order to revamp you. Unfortunately, kind of James Gunn and Peter Safran beat you to the punch there, but I mean,
Start talking.
Listen, DC, hit our man up here, right here. But so, like, because I don't think you and I ever actually talked about like what your thoughts going into Blue Beetle were. Like what your thoughts on like the Blue Beetle character was. That was always a character that was like kind of similar to Cyborg, where he was previously like more of like like part of the Teen Titans Young Justice-esque verse, and then obviously they transitioned Cyborg over into the Justice League. But Jaime Reyes, character, I mean, my personal experience with him has always been, as part of being, the Young Justice, the Teen Titans member, So like what were your thoughts on just Blue Beetle as a character and then going into this movie?
So again, kind of the same thing with you. Like, we only seen him in the Teen Titans, like the animated version, which is a phenomenal series. Like the animated movie sets that came out, Judas Contract, all that, phenomenal.
Yes.
But also, yeah, like experience just kind of the Young Justice kind of thing. Like, just that was a character like that you only saw in the animated realm. We never saw anything live action. So hearing this movie coming out, I was like, oh shit, like this is gonna do it. And then when they casted him from Cobra Kai, I was like, that's a perfect casting. Like, and that I'm normally good for casting like perfect people for like certain roles. And I was like, that's because I couldn't really think of anybody else for that. And I was like, you know what, that's valid. But then given that everything that was happening with the whole Snyderverse and all this other stuff, and then, you know, not having anyone to take over for DC, I kind of knew that like this movie was just going to be like a throwaway. Same thing with The Flash.
Right.
What hurts me about The Flash, and I think we spoke about this in the last podcast, is like this really had the chance to really set the precedent to do the Flashpoint paradox correctly, which they did it, and it could have helped James Gunn out. The movie could have bombed anyway, but it would have reset the story so James Gunn can do what he can do for this.
Right. But the movie didn't even really do that. That's the thing. It really didn't. It kind of really did like this. What, this half-ass like, oh, we reset things, but not really. It kind of the movie literally ended on a joke. The movie ended on a fucking joke. So
it was like, you know what, like, all right, cool. So like with Blue Beetle, watching Blue Beetle is like, and realizing that there is no kind of like talk about what happened before. I guess that gave it a soft little reset here and there. I guess so, maybe. But hearing that James Gunn saying that Blue Beetle is going to be the one character he takes from this and put it into his new DCEU, I was like, that's interesting, because where the hell is he going to fit with all this? But also, we talked about that, his like first slate for his DC, and I was like, I have no idea where he's going with this.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I'm excited to see where it's going, but like, yeah, I just felt like we got to stop wasting characters and actors for these movies that are going to be pieces of shit, because, you know, unless like, you know, he's set on like staying with the character and wanted to like ride it through, and like obviously when things get redone and Blue Beetle shows up again, we can get a good movie with him in it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's really hopeful. But yeah, so.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the actors too, honestly, because I mean, Zachary Levi came out and said, yeah, everyone was like ready to dogpile on my movie before it even came out, which is kind of a little bit unfair, like give it a chance, you know, that. But like, honestly, given the state of everything, given the state of Hollywood and just the types of movies that they're turning out, I can't blame them at all, you know? Yeah. And Momoa obviously is kind of just, you know, like going full on hippie lifestyle, so he'll just, you know, play ball for everything. Ezra, you know, fucking the fact that they even like managed to get him out of like whatever like asylum they had him hold up in order to come out and do press for Flash and everything, I'm like, is amazing. So like, it's just insane. But like, I feel bad for these actors, because you're right, because none of these movies should have been released. The minute that they hit the reset, Black Adam should have been it. And the fact that we have still been getting all these movies this year, which are going to bomb, which are rendered completely pointless to the story, it's like, I feel bad. I really do feel bad for everyone involved. And so naturally, that's why I was skeptical, to say the least, going into this movie. But my biggest surprise coming out as well, I will say, and it's so hard to really judge it based on this point, because it's like, at what point is it that like you really can give a movie credit when it is literally just like the best looking of a series of pieces of shit? Like, it has so many other problems with it as a movie, but the fact that it's like just filling out those cookie cutter, barely scraping by superhero origin story notes that we know that they're capable of making, as opposed to all the rest of the stuff that we've gotten. I feel like I'm in a catch-22. I really do, because it's like, as a movie, it sucks, but as a DC origin story and a DC movie, it's pretty good. I feel like that's kind of where I'm stuck.
Yeah, and like another thing too is like, it makes you wonder, like, they were willing to shelve the Batwoman movie,
right?
So why can't you shelve these movies and like save them for later, or be like, yo, listen, like, I understand these movies are supposed to come out. Let's just push these movies out to streaming, cut our losses with the theatrical cut. Because like, I just feel like just push these out to streaming. What you did for, I forgot what movie did. Oh, they pushed the Wonder Woman 1984 out to streaming.
Right. But that was COVID related.
Yeah, that was COVID related. So it's like, you know what, like, that's still an option, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yeah, I feel like they're just taking these huge hits, and like, these movies are these actors' resume. And it's like, oh yeah, you were in the really shitty Blue Beetle movie. Oh, Zachary Levi, you were in the really shitty Shazam 2 movie.
Yeah.
And not so great first one, but it was all right.
Yeah, it was all right.
You know, it was all right. And then, you know, you got, that's it. And it's like, you know what, that makes sense. But it's like, yeah, they were willing to shelve that Batwoman movie so fucking quick.
Really quick. I'm a little bit like skeptical about that in general, because I'm like, how bad was that movie really going to be as bad as well, because my whole thought process, I'm like, I look at, right, and we're just taking a comparison, right, and we're going to go down this corner, right? I'm looking at like Shazam 2 and The Flash, and just the visuals alone of The Flash. I'm like, you're going to tell me the Batwoman was shittier than that.
And
like,
that's not really a film that should have that much CG in it.
Right. It's a Batgirl movie. Like the villain, like the most amount of effects are probably going to go into the villain that Brendan Fraser was supposed to play, Firefly. But like, Batgirl is not exactly an effects heavy movie. So yeah.
And like, you know, me personally, these movies, the Black Adam, Shazam 2, what's wrong with Black Adam was The Rock.
Yeah.
100%.
We all know that.
Shazam 2, I think it was just like no one just really cared about the movie or the character anymore. Like,
right.
Blue Beetle or The Flash, CG, the problems with Ezra Miller and stuff like that. But the problem is that the CW version of the Flash TV show had so much better visual effects. Now, and that's saying a lot.
Which is saying a lot.
Like that's just saying a lot.
When you consider how awful those effects are on that show.
I would say after season 4 of the Flash show, effects just went too shitty. And I was like,
I think that's being generous and being kind to those first 4 seasons. But I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like by CW CG standards, the first 4 seasons are pretty good.
Yeah, and then like the Flash movie with a higher budget to have a shittier effects to that is a problem. But then like,
and the director even came out and talked about how they kind of got like apparently like at the last minute like they got their CG budget like slashed, so they really had to work with what they had there. But so bringing us into Blue Beetle, right? So you got a movie that is probably the most bare-boned origin story you could get. You know, it's fulfilling all the beats. Like literally, I even texted you after this where I'm like, yeah, there are some sequences that feel and effect shots and everything that feel literally like they're ripped right out of Iron Man. Like this is about as generic an origin as you could possibly get, you know? But that being said, and this is kind of in any other instance where I would have criticized it, you know, as far as like really hammering home, you know, the whole, this is the first Hispanic superhero. And so naturally you got to get all the Mexicanisms in there. And not to like anything that's relatable, you got to ham it up. You got to go over the top. You got to really emphasize the shitty comedy, you know, the shitty family dynamics. And I don't know if this is because I've just been beat down so often by these movies over the last couple of years that they've been doing this, because they've been doing this for quite a while now with a lot of different movies. But for whatever reason, even though I questioned a lot of the acting choices and a lot of the decisions, and yet it still had like a little bit of a wholesome edge to it. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it's just like as a core unit, like just like them tapping into something that they really have never done before in a big budget setting. I don't know if it is just that Xolo is just that good and meshed with everyone that well. Like, I don't know what it quite is, but
that plays a part.
But the movie did have a wholesomeness to it that prevented it from being a total piece of shit to me. Like this is like, I mean, take it from here. Yeah.
I like I said before, like the I could have done without the family aspect in the movie. I really could have. I think there were some points where it was like it's like beating on a joke like too hard. Like it's just like overusing the joke, overusing it, and it was like I feel like that's more just like if you could have took George Lopez's character out and put it somewhere, fine. I could have dealt with the mom.
George Lopez in a movie, you're like, so it's just he's gonna be the comic relief character.
You know? And it's like I felt like there was a lot of points to like the grandmother. She's a fucking she was a G. She was a G the whole movie. I was like, yo,
awesome. But I'm like, but just like with the way that it's characterized, I'm just sitting there. I'm like, this shit is awesome. Like everything's going on with that character at the end, great. Belongs in a completely different movie, like completely different movie.
100%. And it's like, you know, it's like, but the whole like thing you said about the family element, like it worked really well. It really prevented the movie from being a piece of shit.
It really did.
It really did. I think that cast really worked well together.
Yes. All the scenes with the dad in the second half of the movie, I'm like, why can't this be? This is like really hard hitting and like really dramatic and like this is like pulling on my heartstrings a little bit. Like,
this is peak MCU right here. Like,
right, exactly.
This is peak MCU right here.
Literally, it's like it's like finally, like the DCEU has been ripping off the MCU for so long and somehow missing every single one of the good MCU parts, and they finally start to get it in a half-ass movie about a arguably a C-tier character that really no mainstream people know about, and it's still too little too late. Like,
Yeah, it's
Man.
already too late. You got a trio of shitty movies that came out right before it,
Yeah.
and it was bad because I saw like Rotten Tomatoes. Someone had put out a photo of the tomato score, right? And it
Mm.
was saying like it was like maxed out like 99 or something like that, right? And then because of my bad, I was gonna say Twitter, my bad, X,
X.
X,
Thanks, Elon Musk.
X. There was a post that had fact checked it, and it was like, no, somebody had altered this photo. That's not the Rotten Tomato score. But come to
Oh,
find out, checking it, it still looked like a decent score enough anyway. Like it's not like certified
right,
fresh or anything, but it's not that bad. But
right.
it's just it sucks that like movies like that come out and they just get shafted like
Yeah.
right away. Like and obviously
Immediately.
there's like the toxic fan base that we have, it's just like
Right.
of like review bombing stuff, which I never understand. Like give it a shot. But
Yeah.
as soon as someone doesn't like one thing about the movie from like the trailer aspect or
Yeah.
just like the press run, they just want to review bomb the shit. That's why you know me, like I don't listen to reviews.
Yes.
I go see the shit for myself. I don't respond to critics. We both have film degrees. Like we are both
Yeah.
qualified to be film critics. But
Right.
you don't see me on the internet sitting here and be like shit on a movie. I'm like, yeah, it's not that
Right.
bad. It's not that
I
bad. Like,
I think it's an issue of because when we talk about toxic fan bases, because I know I've talked about this with a couple different people, right? It's really like I said, it's really just two. It's Star Wars and Marvel. Now, Star Wars obviously has kind of gone away since we haven't had a Star Wars movie. Since we really haven't had a Star Wars movie since 2019, and it's primarily been on TV shows, and we also know that the reaction to TV shows is just never as big as it is in movies.
yeah.
So with that out of the way, and obviously with let's face it, unfortunately, for the most part, I feel like a lot of the criticisms from the Marvel fan base have usually been on point. They were with Marvel when it was great, and the last couple of Marvel efforts have just not been that good. They really have, with the exception of with a couple exceptions, No Way Home and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It's safe to say that Marvel's just not been it. But this DC stuff, right? So you got to take a couple things into consideration. One, the fact that, right, the Snyder fan base, for better or for worse, was unfortunately proven correct when the Snyder Cut was released. And the fact that that entire fan base was validated, no matter how toxic they are, that validation ultimately, I think it ruined any chance that the DC had to salvage itself. I really did. Because if you ask me, the only good movie that they put out after the Snyder Cut was Gunn Suicide Squad, which, say what you will, I know you and I have our different thoughts on that movie. Say what you will about that movie. It was at the very least better than all the stuff that we've gotten since then. It's better than Black Adam.
I agree. It just wasn't.
Right.
It just wasn't movie of the year.
Right.
That's
Then
my point.
Then add on top of that, right, the Gunn Saffron DC replacement, right? And so, like I said, it's just specifically these movies. So as far as the review bombing goes, you're right. No, the whole destroying a movie before it even comes out, I think is stupid, and I've never been a fan of that because I remember also I spoke out against that when that happened for Quantumania as well. I was not, and it also happened with a David O. Russell movie that came out in the fall called Amsterdam, where people were just review bombing that before it even came out. But at the very least, with the DC stuff, the current DC stuff that we've had this year, at the very least, I'm not justifying it, but I understand where it's coming from because you have a fan base that is one half just still hoping for something that is over. Like the Snyder stuff, it is over. Like Snyder has moved on. It's never coming back. And they're still wishing for something that will never happen again. And then you have another half of fan base that is just waiting for some good movies to be released and then are consistently let down and disappointed. So I think that's why, probably for me at least, the most refreshing thing about this movie specifically was that the initial couple reviews that I saw, right? Because you're right, I don't listen to watch or reviews in general, but I always see them on X, right? And I hate that I have to say that now, but I fucking hate that I even made a stand-up joke about that. I'm like, what do we even call tweets now? What are they like? We just call them X's? Like, we got to come up with a whole new language setup for this. And so I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that the majority of the reviews for this coming out were positive. They were.
Yeah.
A lot of people had a lot of things to say. They're like, yeah, this isn't the end-all, be-all saving grace of the DC, whatever, but it's got heart. It's got charm. The lead and Xolo is great. And the fact that a lot of people were praising Xolo's performance, at the very least, I'm like, okay. I'm like, even if this movie was a complete and total failure and not being positively received, his performance was good, and that was enough for me. That really was. Because I'm like, at this point, it's all I can hope for.
Right. So my take on the whole like toxic fan base thing, to add on to what you were saying, my problem with the Snyder fans was when Snyder was doing his original cuts of his movie, right? Everyone was like, they were all shitting on him, right?
Right.
Exactly. And it wasn't until when Snyder was like, I can't because of the whole death of his family.
Right.
I can't do it. And then we got the Josh Whedon cut of Justice League.
Yes,
And
that's
everyone
when
was
it all
like,
started.
everyone's like, "Oh no, we need the Snyder cut. We need this." And I was like, "You hypocrite sons of bitches, bro!
Yep.
Like, you
It's
guys
the
are
same shit
shitting
with
on
it's the same shit
everybody."
with Andrew Garfield in Amazing
Yeah.
Spider-Man. It's the same shit
Oh,
there.
100%.
Same exact thing.
We're not gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this after. But yeah, it's just like the Snyder Cut fans. Like that's why I look at them and like I take what they say with a grain of salt
Yeah,
because like I
exactly.
was there. I was there as when y'all were shitting on these movies.
Yeah.
Mind you, I saw Justice League, the Josh Whedon cut, before it came out in movie theaters
Yeah,
because
I
Syracuse.
remember you. So you told me about this story.
Yeah,
Tell the viewing audience, right? All one of them. Tell the viewing audience here your story of how you saw the Justice League cut of because that was before we even met back in
yeah.
November of 2017.
So like I was going to Syracuse University and I was in the film program and basically we end up getting a cut of the Josh Whedon version of Justice League coming out and like I have like I think I have it on my Snapchat or I'll show you the photos or whatever. But yeah, they were showing us the movie for free, and I was like, wait a minute, like why are they showing us this movie for free?
And
Mind you,
keep in
this
mind,
was
just preface, right? 2 weeks before it came out. Because
2
the
weeks
movie
before
opened
it came out.
yeah,
So we're
never a good
getting
sign.
so we're
Never a
getting
good
like
sign.
the press run, like the
Right.
press run of the movie, like where they're doing all the touring, all the stuff for that. We're getting the press run cut of that movie. And I saw that whole movie with like I think a couple thousand other Syracuse University students with that movie back in 2017. I was like, that shit is insane. And that's how I knew that movie was gonna be shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then finally seeing it, I was like, it wasn't that bad. But then
Right.
like I also saw the notes where Josh Whedon was like, oh, I tried to save the movie. But then what I hate about what they did to Josh Whedon after that is that they promised him a movie. I think they promised him Batgirl.
They did.
They promised him Batgirl. And then when the movie bombed, they were like, nah, you can't direct nothing now. Like I was
because
like,
so
and then
very
Josh Whedon went into all
suspicious.
this shit.
Right. Well, because very suspiciously enough, right? Joss Whedon. It took a couple years because Joss Whedon did that HBO show, The Nevers, and then mysteriously got canceled with all the Buffy the Vampire. Well, because the Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff that all came out like right around when the Justice League was coming out, because like Buffy was also celebrating its 20-year anniversary at that point.
Right.
And then, but then it took like weirdly a couple years before he like went away with all the cancellation stuff with him. So that was really weird how that happened. And I've even gone on record to say at this point that I do not hate the Snyder cut. That I do not hate the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League after having watched the Snyder cut and seen what it was supposed to be. In comparison, obviously, yes, the Justice League cut, as I call it, as I've come to call it, is a vastly inferior product. But that being said, again, all the shit with the fan base, you're 100% right. Like, there are a bunch of freaking hypocrites because it didn't start until the Joss League cut started. Which, and again, the fact that he stepped away because it was a very tragic death in his family, right? That nobody should have to go through. And the fact that he came back and edited it and put the Snyder cut out and made it for HBO Max, like that was already a testament up, because he could have walked away from that and we could have never seen the Snyder cut. We could have never seen the light of day. And my whole thing that I was dreading going, nothing against Snyder, because I had a feeling that even because I remember I hated Batman vs Superman, still hate that movie. I still don't think that movie's good at all. It's not good. I'm sorry. Still going into that movie to this day, I was like, okay, Justice League will probably be better than the version that we got in theaters. But two things. One, I'm like, if we get just a 4-hour version of the same movie, I'm gonna be pissed. And two, I just knew, like, regardless of whether this movie sucks or is good, the fact that it is getting released and validating all of these fans who, for the most part, I would say have contributed a very negative outlook to just fan base in general. It's going to be a disaster. And then it was what it was. You know, like I said, it was March of 2021, so we were still kind of like in the middle of COVID lockdown. And yeah, everything that happened afterwards was a direct result of that. And it sucks because it sucks for Snyder. It sucks for Whedon. It sucks for all the cast that was involved. Obviously, we all know what happened with Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill with the whole Mission Impossible back and forth, all that. Like, yeah, it was a mess. It was a mess.
If I have not to cut you off, if I have to say, if there's one actor that got shafted the most, Henry Cavill.
Like,
lost
my God.
Superman, got brought back for Superman in the terrible Black Adam movie. Then get told that he's not going to be Superman again. Then he was pitched, back and forth with the whole Witcher shit, which I will never watch. I'm not going to watch the Witcher series anymore because, sorry to Liam Hemsworth, but it's like, you're just not Geralt.
And I don't know about this. I saw a picture of Liam Hemsworth, like an early picture of Liam Hemsworth with Geralt. Oh, it looks bad.
I was like, that's Evan
bad.
Cullen right there. That's a new Cullen.
Yeah, literally.
So yeah, it's just like, but to overall, just to Black Beetle, that not yet.
No, that's for the sequels. That's for the
Not
sequels.
yet. Sorry, already thinking. See, hold me, DC.
Already thinking ahead. Well, I'm
For
wondering
back to
if when Black Beetle comes out, I'm wondering if they're gonna do a bit like what you know the bit, the meme that they show with the Black Lightning with Killer Frost, and he's like, "You've never had Black Lightning." I'm wondering if they're gonna do something like that, but with the Black Beetle. Oh,
no,
my
just
mind is
Black
already
Beetle
on the
just calling
possibility.
humans meatbags. That you got me, bro. You got me.
Yes,
That's
yes. Young Justice
meatbags.
season 2.
Yeah, just calling people like now. That's the thing too. Like that's another like realm that they can bring into, like bring in the Reach,
Right. Bringing the Reach,
wasn't
which was crazy.
because that wasn't just a Blue Beetle like thing. Like that was
Right.
everybody.
Yeah. That was a
So
whole ass invasion.
so it was like like that's for later. Turn obviously they're not gonna get that. DC, call me if you want the info.
Hey, I will say though, the director has said that because, well, I mean, we'll get into this obviously as we talk more about the movie, but like the director has said that he has had plans for sequels that would involve Black Beetle and the Reach coming in. So
Yeah, because like we saw that in the movie where there was all the different scarabs that went out, which
yeah,
I
right,
was looking for the black scarab. I was looking for that one, like
right. I mean,
and
we
I
saw
didn't
the
see
red
it.
one, we saw the
Yeah.
green one.
So it's like we all know like there's other scarabs out there in the world in the universe. So
Right.
it's like it's totally fine. But yeah, like overall, like kind of just tying this all back into Blue Beetle is like just like for DC fans, like I know like the real DC fans, they are starving for a good movie.
Yes,
And
they really are.
they haven't got it since like Man of Steel. Like Man of Steel, super underrated movie. Like they just
Yes,
haven't got it. And like maybe the first Wonder Woman movie, maybe the first
maybe.
Aquaman movie, but there was significant characters that they really wanted as a fan base that really want to pop, and the Flash was one of them. And
Yes,
just the constant brutalization of the fans, and people are just not getting what they fucking want.
yes.
At this point, like we got to stop being toxic as a fan base and really start like showing these fucking companies to really make what we want, like,
Yeah.
or we're not gonna go see these shits at all.
Yeah,
Like,
and
and
we
it's
right,
just like,
and the one positive, if there's one positive that I can say that has been a good takeaway from so far this year, is that for the most part, people have shown it with their dollars because Black Adam flop, Shazam 2 flop, The Flash biggest box office bomb since Green Lantern over a decade ago. So at the very least, the fan base is showing it with their dollars, right, and showing that Warner Brothers overall made a really really terrible decision releasing all of these movies this year. Now, with that being said, bringing it back to Blue Beetle. As far as the whole thing goes, I think this movie's biggest strength, besides the family stuff, the family dynamics, which we talked about a little bit, I think this movie's big strength is that for the most part, with the exception of like a couple veiled references, right? Because it did a similar thing that I think Shazam did as well. The first one did, which I think is why Shazam 1 worked better than Shazam 2. It's almost entirely standalone. It's almost entirely standalone. There's no other external characters that get into it. They don't get into the whole greater aspect. It is solely
just him.
a standalone origin for Jaime, gets the scarab, right? Becomes like this superhero. You have the whole clunking around. Like I said, it's doing all the beats. It's checking off all the boxes as far as like what to do with a superhero origin. The lines are super generic. The themes are very obvious and on the nose, but they're doing it well enough, and it is standalone enough that I'm never distracted. Like I was never wondering, okay, when's Ben Affleck's Batman going to show up? When's Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman going to show up? When's Jason Momoa? I was never once concerned and distracted by that when that was going to happen. So that I think is a very very big positive that I don't know if enough people are talking about.
Yeah, it didn't bite off. It didn't bite off too much. It couldn't chew. It
Right.
didn't try to throw in another big superhero in there. Obviously, like,
Right.
I think one takeaway that a lot of people don't realize is that the whole like end credit thing, which I'm pretty sure we'll get into later, the whole Ted Kord's alive thing. Yeah. Obviously, we're gonna see Ted Kord and Booster Gold because that's technically the whole fucking story.
That's true. That's
the
right.
whole fucking story about Booster Gold. So it's like obviously we're gonna see that moving forward. But yeah, I think it didn't do too much. Obviously people are gonna want a whole bunch of more. They're gonna want to see another superhero because people love that. But no, I think for a standalone movie, talking about kind of like this kid who went from nothing to now being to one of the most powerful fucking superheroes on the planet right now. There you go. Because the scare is really a fucking problem when you really think about it.
Yeah, it really is. And obviously, the movie, there was only so much that this first movie was going to be able to get into. But if like I said, I do want to talk about this director a lot because I will say that like there was enough. Like I said, I don't love the movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but there was enough in the movie to make me understand, okay, this director at the very least is a fan of this because just from, again, first off, the look of the costume, right? The look of the costume and the look of all the Beetle stuff,
Spot on.
Pitch perfect, on point, spot on. Like that might be the best design for a superhero costume that I have seen in a long time, long time. And like I will say that like of all the things that have been wrong with superhero movies and properties of the last couple of years since 2021, the costumes, weirdly enough, have not been one of them. The costumes have all been pretty good, but this one, it was spot on. Number two, the blending of the CGI and the choreography. A lot better than the trailers made it out to be. Like a lot, like there were a lot of times.
The trailers didn't do it no justice.
The trailers did not do it justice at all. That fight choreography was on point, and really, really good. Like I was like when people took hits and threw punches, I'm like, oh, I actually felt that. Holy shit! Yeah. Like this action it's pretty good. You know, that was number two. Number three, the fact that. Right, so this director, obviously, I believe the guy's name is Angel Manuel Soto, has talked about, right, the idea that, like, okay, he clearly is a Blue Beetle fan, right? He's a fan of the comics, which is something that really you can't really say about any of these previous directors for these last couple properties. You know, you had, like, Juan Collet-Serra, who's, like, an action guy for Black Adam, and David F. Sandberg, who's a horror guy, and immediately said, yeah, he's like, I knew this movie was going to be shit, so, like, I wasn't even trying. And Andy Muschietti, who, like, has had such a weird career trajectory in Hollywood as the director of the It movies and horror, and like is trying to be like the next Sam Raimi, but like hasn't had enough movies to really demonstrate that. So, but like the fact that this is like finally we get another director in there who's kind of following in the vein of like what the Russo brothers and James Gunn set up originally, where he's clearly a fan of this source material and can and he knows how to do it well enough. You know, I think all of those going into it were positive enough for me to overlook, or rather not overlook, but not get bothered by the movie's flaws.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You know?
100%. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And, just looking him up too, like this is like his first, like, I guess, big blockbuster movie to me personally. I've never really seen any of his other stuff he did.
Right, I'd never heard of this guy before this.
Charm City Kings in 2020. Then he did 2015 La Granja. And then, there's just like smaller projects here and there. But yeah, so this is like, they got someone that's not too big over his head, doesn't think he's hot shit. He's trying to be somebody else. You got someone who's, like you said, who's a fan of the source material, So I could see a good future if they decide to, tap on the shoulder again and be like, yo, you did a decent job. Fuck the bullshit before. Like, yo, let's give you a bigger budget. Because that's another thing I feel like for a lot of these like first time movies, that no one really is not a household name yet.
Right.
They give them these huge ass budgets and they don't know what to do with them.
Right. Which is so stupid if you ask me.
Which is so dumb. And I feel like the only reason why like that's happened is because they gave, but James Gunn had a name to him a little bit already.
A little bit, but like again, like right, but like you take a look at that, right? You take a look at the Russos with Winter Soldier and with Gunn with Guardians of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, because that's really where all this started, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a miracle. Let's be completely frank.
They could have went shit real bad.
They could have gone really bad. And it is a miracle that the Russos and Gunn are as talented as they are and had the resources that Marvel was able to provide them at the time to be able to make those movies as good as they were and to be able to make them as successful as they were. Because you're right. Because every single time you've seen it recently, I mean, Waititi with Ragnarok, not with Love and Thunder, with Ragnarok, and then with Coogler with Black Panther. But even with Black Panther, we saw what happened with the effects at the end. Like
the third act, the third act.
It's largely been more of a failure than a success with these micro indie budget directors getting these $300 to $450 million budgets, and like half the time the VFX and action sequences are done by a completely separate house. The director doesn't even like see them until they're almost completely done. It's just a I mean, Chris and I have been talking about this for years, but it's really just a backwards way of filmmaking. And really, it's only the fact that Marvel was able to pull it off for so long that is the reason why this has become the norm. You know?
But the thing is too, like to add on to what you're saying, but the VFX houses, obviously, we've seen like Disney and stuff have been putting out these huge, crazy deadlines on them. If they had more time to cook it up, we probably would have got something better. We would have got something that's worth that budget. But yeah, those two going hand in hand, having all that money, not knowing what to do with it, and then having crazy deadlines to get the shit done. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and now it's even getting to the point where now even the VFX people are starting to unionize, which good for them, honestly. After hearing the shit that they've had to deal with over the last couple of years, good for them. And I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. I'm assuming they took a little bit of cues from their fellow writers and actors there as far as them being on strike this whole summer. But as far as some of the flaws that this movie has, and this movie has quite a few. Number one, really generic, like over the top villain. It's just evil. I mean, I'll give her some credit, Susan Sarandon as the villain, evil just for the sake of being evil, and also racist without actually being racist. Like some pretty hardcore racism that was just like very readily apparent that like
I was waiting for the slurs to come out.
I'm surprised. Like that's how you knew the movie was PG-13, but she was just basically dropping some slurs, and I'm like, you've got a fucking Brazilian niece. Like that was just already mind blowing to begin with.
Chill out.
Like that was crazy, and then the whole fucking shit with the side villain at the end, and where that went. I'll admit the side villain had a pretty cool arc, and that went in a direction that I was not expecting. But like number one, the villain. Number two, the comedic relief, like the comedy in this, and like it's just like I said, I said I appreciated the family dynamics, but the actual characterization and their actions, it's like, okay, we get it. It's like taking like, and keep on, I am a fan of George Lopez, the sitcom. I am. I think it's funny. I laughed a lot when I really enjoyed that show when I was a kid. Yeah. But it's like they took all the George Lopez sitcom antics and tried to apply that to the big screen, and of course just upping the humor to just obnoxious levels, to the points where it's like I thought they didn't do this, and then they did. They literally had the point where when the truck first pulled in, whatever he called like the taco truck or whatever, and you had that and they start playing. I'm like, bro, first of all, Marvel already did that joke. Second of all, are we like just, is this just what we're doing now? We're just embellishing every single stereotype in the book. Like, come on.
I feel like, you know, the whole, like, I feel like they just put whatever Spanish, like, actors they could get into a movie, and was like, here, give them clout, here, because, like, the whole thing, like, you know, the Sanchez character, even though that's not his name, and we got his name like the last, like before he got fucking obliterated.
And I knew that was gonna happen. Like, the minute it's built up, I'm like, yeah, he's gonna help. And I felt bad for Harvey Gann. I like that guy. He's in What We Do in the Shadows. He was actually really good in the most recent Puss in Boots. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, they're only building that up so we can say what his real name is, then get killed off. Like I've seen this before. I know what
so
this
is like.
All
right, cool. And I feel like George Lopez, like they just need another big name for the comedic relief, because you know Yolo couldn't do it himself. Because like he has some funny bits in there, but he wasn't really trying to. He was really trying to just focus on like Jaime Reyes' character, like
and just like being a good actor. He wasn't focused on the comedic relief, because he should. Because like I said, that I think that kid's just a good actor. You know?
Yeah, he's a great actor. So it's like, I just feel like they just tried to put every like Mexican actor that we know in the movie and stuff like that. You know, also shout out to them for getting the rights to El Chapulín. Like, I don't know how the fuck did they did that, but hey, go right ahead.
Props to them.
But yeah, I just felt like they just like, you know, it's very generic. Like I said before, like we could have really did without the family, but as thinking about it now, you mention it, like the whole wholesome element to it.
Right.
I don't know where that would have went without the wholesome element to it. Like or maybe would have dialed it back a little bit, because I feel like the family was just
you wouldn't have had it. You wouldn't have.
Yeah, you really wouldn't have had it. But like also like that's to represent a lot of things, like that's Mexican culture. Like they're really tight knit family. They're really close. They go through everything together. So it's like that makes sense, and I get it. You know, especially with his character.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of elements in that movie that I just could have not done with.
Right, and it's like my whole thing with it is it's like I'm like I get it. I'm like they're almost there. I'm like they just need to dial back the comedy and the stupid bits. You know, like the stupid bits that was too much for me. But like if they just dial back the comedy and focus on the drama, because so much of the time what they're doing is they in most of these instances, right? They don't have anything of substance, so they just try to cover it up with humor. This is one of the first instances where they actually had some really good drama. Some really, really good drama here. Like, it was really good. Like, all the scenes with him and the dad, and then obviously where that arc went, and even the fucking, again, a sequence that I'm pretty sure they just shot after they start Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and pretty much just, like, tried to throw a sequence like that right in there when he was, like, having, like, the vision space where he sees the dad. I was, like, that was legitimately tugging on my heartstrings. I'm like, if they had just focused more on that, and less on the George Lopez thing, and less on, and again, it was funny, but less on the grandma with the machine gun, and her being a revolutionary, and less on the fucking with the annoying sister who's like
the sister was really overdoing
the sister was, I'm like, easily, if you could have cut one character from that movie, I'm like, cut the fucking sister. Like, what a pointless waste of space character. And she's only there to have the fucking like the giant fist thing, which I'm surprised she didn't do like a middle finger at the guys. I'm surprised she didn't do that, you know, because that's the type of humor that they were going for.
It's like I feel like the sister just really didn't drive the movie forward, didn't really drive the character forward for Jaime. I feel like the father, perfect driving force for like to push Jaime to really be like, like I need to be this, you know, I need to protect the family. You know, again, screw the sister because it was the sister when they got the father killed. I'm just
right, exactly.
And like,
and I was gonna talk about that. And I was gonna talk about that because, like, yeah, you're right. It's like so. First off, like, right. So Jaime was going. Also, I love how she had the gall to be like, "Oh, where were you?" And Jaime was like, "Bitch, did you not see that I got snatched up by a fucking like the giant claw? Like the claw came and got me. Like, did you miss that part?" Right, and it's and like, but that part, that whole sequence, like when they're coming in, they're destroying the house, the family, and everything, and then when the dad has the heart attack, like I figured out what was gonna happen there, but I was like, oh my god, like this is holy shit, like this is like really impactful. Focus on that, go away from like. So I was like, don't cut to George Lopez making another fucking terrible joke and shit, like this is good stuff. Focus on it,
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, I kind of knew like the way how the pacing and the tonnage kind of. We knew that someone was gonna die, like
right.
Typical trope,
Yeah,
it's always been the same for me.
Death of the
it's always been the same for me, especially with the first Spider-Man movie. Like, Uncle Ben dies, and that's just been the fucking trope.
It's a canon event. It's literally a canon event.
If you're a superhero,
you're gonna have a dead family member. Watch out for them family members. One of them.
If it's not all of them, it's one of them.
It's one of them. There can only be one. There can only be one, or it's all of them.
Yeah. Except for Spider-Man, like No Way Home, he lost Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Oh man. Double
homicide. Not double. And we don't even know how they got Uncle Ben. Yeah. We don't even know. They won't tell us.
Uncle Ben lacking. They off screen him. It was bad.
Oh man, only 11 months left of the year because there ain't no May left.
Hey, Yeah.
That meme, I'm sorry. Shout out to whoever came up with that meme. That is one of the greatest memes I've ever seen. That shit is hilarious. Oh man.
No, that was a really great heartfelt scene. I was like, yo, this is dope. Like you said, focus on this. Don't add George Lopez. Do not put George Lopez in here making this a dumbass joke. Like, please, because you just ruined it. 100%. And it's just like.
And also, too, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, George Lopez is like they can't make up their minds on him. It's like, okay, so he's either a genius inventor or he's just like a crackpot. Like, but you can't have him both. Like, he just has this fucking machine in his pickup truck that can just that's also like a signal jammer, and he just does the the whole kick thing. But then he can like pilot the Blue Beetle tech just like magically. It's like, why the fuck was this guy? So that they're all complaining about how they're in poverty. Why the fuck was this guy not already working for Cord Industries? Like the whole thing is like, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist, all that. I'm like, okay, so fine. He should at the very least be able to like patent some of this shit. Like, there's no reason. There's no explanation as to why this family should be in as much poverty as they're in.
And I feel like that's probably going to be a story element that they're going to do for the next movie. Is like, he works for Cord, but he's working with Jenny to kind of make things a lot better and stuff like that. Humanitarianism, stuff like that. Which I was like, all right, cool. Like I said, like I really I didn't care for George Lopez's character.
Yeah, and the Jenny character too. It's like, okay, so obvious love interest right there. Like I don't know. It felt like I felt like that was the only performance. She was so self-aware of how bland and generic her character trope was. Where it's like she's got daddy issues because her parents are like gone and she grew up rich. That's gonna be in stark contrast to Jaime, and so that's how they're gonna bond all that. Like, I don't know, man. Like, just zero chemistry between those two. I feel like Xolo was just carrying those scenes on his back.
Yeah. So he was doing a lot. He was doing a lot. So it's like, shout out to him. But
yeah.
So overall, decent movie. Not like it was one of those turn my brain off.
Yeah, exactly. Turn my brain off. I enjoyed it. I saw it at 2:00. It was on my birthday. I walked out. I'm like, I didn't hate this. I had fun.
I saw it like 7:20 at night. Movie theater was semi-packed, which was surprisingly. I was like, but it's also like this is like the only movie theater in the area that I'm at. So it's like it's an AMC.
But also, I feel like the difference, too, between this movie and a couple of the other DC movies is this one, I feel like, I don't know why, maybe it's just because the protagonist is significantly younger. Xolo he's only 23, so, like, this is a significantly younger protagonist. So I feel like this one would just appeal to kids more. I feel like more of a wholesome message. I feel like a lot more kids would want to go and see this as well. Also, not to beat a dead horse even more, especially because this movie is long since dead, but I will say this movie had a more gruesome, like, transformation-esque sequence than any of the shit that we saw in that god-awful Josh Trank Fantastic Four 2015 movie. Like, the scene where the scarab, like, goes up his ass and, like, fucking, like, transforms him and he gets the suit on for the first time. That was a good fucking scene. That was like that.
Are we really going with it went up his ass? Are we really going with that?
I mean, listen, there was nothing in the movie that refuted that statement.
He said it didn't go in his ass.
I'm just, we don't know for certain.
Fair. It went somewhere.
Where else? It went somewhere. It was
Yeah.
under his skin. It was like protruding through his skin. It
Yeah.
wasn't, because traditionally how it goes is it crawls up his back and it like digs the scarab in and it
Yeah, it
lashes
digs
in.
in. Yeah.
Not this. Not this.
Yeah, that's wild stuff.
Yeah, wild stuff.
Yeah,
Man,
no, the
everybody else.
is wild.
Yeah, everybody else just took that whole Ant-Man meme and just ran with it. First the boys and now Blue Beetle. They just ran with it.
Yeah.
I will never forget the look on Dalen's face. Just to put this in perspective, for anybody who has not seen The Boys, season 3, the premiere episode, for anybody who's seen that episode knows what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to go into specific detail, but we showed that scene to a mutual friend of ours who had not seen it, and the look on his face when he saw what happened couldn't be replicated at all. Like, priceless. Chef's kiss. Oh, man. But yeah, so with that being said, overall, your final thoughts and star rating for Blue Beetle.
Oh, this is gonna be controversial. What's that out of 5?
Out of 5, out of 10. It's up to you, really.
If I have to do out of 5, I'm gonna give it like a 4.2.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I gave it a 4.2 out of 5 because like, there was some elements in the movie that I did enjoy. Like, it was able to enjoy the movie and not have to be like, oh, this shit's a drag, bro. Like,
exactly.
This shit's terrible.
Exactly.
Like, or this is just way too much, or like I'm not like there's so much going on that I can't stay focused. This was just like a calm night. I went in. It could have also been that I was probably high too, but it is
that probably helped.
Yeah,
that probably helped.
Like, but it was like coming down, so it was like all right, it was fine. Yeah. But it was like also like I just enjoyed the movie. Like I probably will end up going to see it again, like for sure, just like to enjoy it, like to relax. But yeah, 4.2 out of 5 is not bad.
Like, I'll say, like, outside of, like, the origin story beats as well, like, it's one of those instances where it's like, this is good enough for me to see where they could, like, do even better with the sequels, where I've had that happen before, with, like, first movies that I thought were just okay, but I didn't really like, and then they did even better with the sequel. And so that I definitely think that this has the potential to go in that direction. For sure.
I agree, for sure. Yeah, it definitely has potential to, like, it's not one of those, it's a flop, don't get me wrong, because, like a perfect example, Green Lantern. Green Lantern flopped, but low key, it had enough gust of wind
potential. Like if they
potential to drop another one. Yeah,
they could have done another one. Yes, and it's like they were setting up for a sequel. So
yeah, and then Blue Beetle, like I feel like it didn't do so bad where it was like, oh yeah, we can't do another one of these. This is.
I would have to check the box office on that, but I can already probably predict that.
I think it broke even.
Aquaman 2 was a big surprise. Yeah, I think it's already broken even. I would not be surprised if like, because the other thing too also is that's the other thing too is that by this point in the year, there's a reason why I brought it up, like started this podcast talking about August movies, is because by this point in the year, like again, it just all like these shitty low budget movies. Like last year, famously, we had Beast, the Idris Elba punching a lion in the face movie, and The Invitation, which Dalen and I fucking loved, but was a terrible movie. Just an awful movie. And this year, like, again, we had the typical schlock. Yeah, terrible movie. Like, enjoyable, terrible movie, though. But, that girl not thinking that anything was up. Like, it was trying to do the Get Out thing, but with vampires, and it's like, I get it. But, and the only reason why Dalen and I had fun was because we were roasting the shit out of that movie the entire time. But and there were two people sitting next to us that were pretty sure we're on a date. We're pretty sure we ruined their date for them because it was just us two and them doing the theater.
That's
ruined their date. Just me and dickheads. We were having too much fun. We were having way too much fun. But anyways, so I don't even remember what my point was originally. But the point being is that we never get like movies like this at this point in the month of August. We don't. We just don't. And we have this, and then we have Gran Turismo next week, both of which actually look like pretty good. Like, this has probably been the best August that we've had in years, you know? I was like, because in previous years, we only ever get one. There could only be one August movie, because famously, just to further prove my point, guess what the other big August movie after the first Guardians of the Galaxy was in August of 2014? And you're going to hate me for making you remember this, because this is from your least favorite director ever. It was the Michael Bay-produced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a massive box office success. But as if that doesn't prove my point, that we only ever get one good August movie, and I think that it's safe to say that, again, at the risk of jinxing it, we finally got a good August. Because I don't know if you saw Last Voyage of the Demeter, but that movie was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was pretty good, honestly. It was horrifying. It was compelling enough for what it was. It was nothing amazing, but it knew the type of movie that it was. It stuck to its guns, and it was solid. It was very, very solid. I enjoyed it. And Gran Turismo looks pretty good.
I'm not gonna lie, Blue Beetle is probably gonna be the only movie that I see for August. Because after I came back from Oswego after vacation, I went back and I saw Oppenheimer again here in my local movie theater, and my eyes were distasted. Like, because like to the viewers, I flew out to San Francisco and I saw Oppenheimer in the 70 millimeter IMAX, and it was phenomenal.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm seeing it again on Tuesday in 70 millimeter IMAX. I haven't seen it yet in 70 millimeter IMAX. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Different experience, like really, really great experience. And then I saw it like a regular, like non IMAX screen. Forget about it.
Not the same. Not the same.
And I couldn't sit there for 3 hours. Like I had to get up like towards the end because I already saw the movie already. But I was like, I had to get up towards the end.
Yeah, no,
so that ruined my eyes for.
Yeah, I need to see it in the IMAX 70 millimeter, and I'm going on Tuesday. Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it for sure. But yeah, like I said, obviously don't see these in theater, but yeah, I would say like Last Voyage of the Meteor was good. Gran Turismo looks good. I also saw this other really cool indie movie from my favorite indie director, Corey Finley, called Landscape with an Invisible Hand, which was actually that one's worth watching. It not in the theater, like definitely wait for it on streaming, but it is worth watching. Where that movie is basically where if you basically took like an entire alien race that invaded the Earth, but like was exploiting like different labor wages, where they were like selecting certain like people who were like the highest like in society, like doctors, lawyers, the surgeon shit, and like paying them like triple what they already made to like just act as their like servants. And then you had the people on Earth like scrounging around for attention by essentially like putting their entire like romantic lives on display for these aliens to watch like a TV show, because like the aliens don't understand human intimacy and they view it as entertainment. And it is really interesting and really fascinating to watch. And I do heavily recommend it. It's like I said, it's my favorite independent director. The guy's name is Corey Finley. He directed two of my absolute favorite movies in the last couple of years. He directed this movie Thoroughbreds with Olivia Cooke and Anya Taylor-Joy, which is great. And this movie Bad Education, which is the one about with Hugh Jackman that went to HBO, that was about the principal in Long Island that was embezzling a shit ton of money from his schools that he was principal for. Both really good, really solid movies. This dude Corey Finley, if you ask me, is the number 2 best of the film brats. The new film brats, I should say. He's right up there with Damien Chazelle and Jordan Peele and Robert Eggers and the Safdies and all those guys. Definitely heavily recommend checking out those movies. But yeah, this has been a good August so far. I can't complain. Most of the time, whenever it's it's always my birthday month, and whenever it comes up, I always like dreading. I'm like, oh great, what kind of schlock are we gonna get this month? But it's been a pretty good month, honestly. I can't complain.
Yeah, that's right. No, what else? I also saw they cloned Tyrone.
Yeah, which end of July, but yeah, which by the way, I told you you were gonna love that movie.
It's good. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie, partially because of another movie that we love, but because I will admit, like, come on, you can't tell me that I was wrong that they cloned Tyrone is like if they took Black Dynamite but like made it like okay, what if we like made this like as a serious movie, not as like a spoof?
Yeah, I mean, to me personally, like I still took They Cloned Tyrone as a spoof movie, but it was like it had serious elements.
I mean, it is, but like. But it's not framed as it is funny, but it's not like Black Dynamite is a straight up spoof, like satire. 100%. Like that movie is not made to be taken seriously at all, and it's done intentionally so. Not this movie.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a good movie. Good cast.
Besides, really good cast. Jamie Foxx, man, with these Netflix movies, man, he's been killing it. He really has.
I wouldn't say what's the Power one wasn't that good.
Okay, you know what? You're right. Project Power, but he was good. But Day Shift was good. Day Shift was solid.
Day Shift was good.
Day Shift was solid. Yeah, and also like I said, with the string of vampire movies that we get into, we kind of like I don't know when like Hollywood like heard me as far as like bring back badass vampire movies, but they've been doing it honestly.
You know what I watched the other day?
What?
You're gonna laugh at me, and
oh boy, what did you watch?
You might have to end the podcast after this.
What?
I
am, but.
Abe Lincoln, the Vampire Hunter.
No, come on, man. Listen. You know how much I have been wanting for there to make good that movie is part of the reason why we weren't able to get fucking good vampire movies for a decade. Those movies and fucking Twilight, which by the way, you embellished by watching all those movies that were on fucking Netflix. I'm sorry, I gotta end the podcast after that. Where can the people follow you on the interwebs?
I'm gravity.gg on Instagram, and yeah, that's pretty much.
At Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms. At Official Talking TV Podcast. You guys know the rest. Subscribe on YouTube. This episode will be up on Spotify tomorrow. 12 seasons of this short film. Watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next week. Fucking Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter. How dare you?